Hello and welcome to this Silverstripe screencast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to create multiple templates in your theme. So first, we'll talk about creating a second page type, and that'll be based on our home page. And then we'll use something called the layout variable, which is going to help reduce our redundancy. Next, we'll talk about moving our CSS and JavaScript into the controller. And lastly, we'll tidy things up by moving some content out into includes. So let's start by creating that second page type. Now, as I said, this is going to be based on our home page, so we're talking about the home.html document in our static folder. In order to create a new page type, we first need to add a PHP class to represent it. Having a new class will give us the option of creating this page type in the CMS. Now, since this is all code related, we'll leave the theme folder for now and add the file to the project directory mysite. So in the mysite/code folder, create a file called HomePage.php, and we'll put two classes in this PHP file. Both of these classes are deliberately empty because they're just placeholders for now. But notice that we subclass the page class so that we can inherit all of its properties and functionality, such as title, content, menu, and all the other things we talked about in previous episodes and more. This first class is called the model. It will contain all the custom database fields, data relationships, and functionality that can be expressed across multiple templates. The second class is called the controller. Now, by convention, every page type has to have a controller with it that uses the naming convention _controller after the page type name. So in this case, homepage_controller. The controller is sort of the liaison between the HTTP request and the finalized template. Controllers can become very dense with functionality and will commonly include functions for querying the database, checking user authentication, handling form submissions, and dealing with any other arbitrary business logic you might have in your project. Now that we have this new page type, we need to rebuild the database so that the CMS becomes aware of its existence. We'll go to the URL /dev/build on your website. When this script is complete, you should see some blue text indicating that the field sitetree.classname was updated to include the value homepage. Let's go into the CMS at the URL /admin. We'll log in and edit the page home. On the settings tab, change the page type to homepage, and we'll save and publish. Now let's leave the CMS and reload the homepage in the browser. You should see the default page type with the homepage content. Now, before we move on and create the custom template for homepage, we need to talk about the layout variable. Now, in an earlier tutorial, we discussed the dry principle, or do not repeat yourself. This discourages repeating content. One glaring problem you may have noticed is that as we add new page types, we'll have to copy over a lot of content, such as the head, navigation, and footer, to every single page. But with little variation, all of our templates are going to share this content. This type of outer content is often called the Chrome of your site. To prevent the redundancy of adding Chrome to each template, Silverstripe offers template layouts. To illustrate how this works, let's first find all the content that will not be common between our default page and our home page. A quick glance through the mockups reveals that everything between the closing header tag and the opening footer tag is unique content. So we'll highlight all the content between the closing header and the opening footer and cut it to the clipboard. We'll replace all that content with the variable $layout. Create a new template in templates/layout called page.ss and paste all the content from your clipboard into that file and save. Likewise, we'll create a new template in the same location called homepage.ss, and this time we'll copy the content between the header and footer in the static/home.html template. We'll paste it into this file and save. Now, anytime we create a new template, we need to flush the cache. So once again, we'll have to add that $flush to the URL and reload. And now we see a distinct design for the home page versus the other two pages. Now, this all might seem trivial, but what you've just achieved is massive gains in efficiency and code organization. Here's how it works. Silverstripe sees that you're requesting a URL for a page that uses the homepage.ss template. It first looks in the main templates directory to find the Chrome for this page. If it finds a file called homepage.ss in there, it will select that as your Chrome. If not, it will go through the ancestry of the page until it finds a match. In this case, it only has to go one level up to the parent class of HomePage, which is page, and it uses that. Then the layout variable tells Silverstripe to look in the template/layout directory for a template that matches this page type. In this case, it does find homepage.ss and it uses that. If it had not found homepage.ss, it would chase up the ancestry tree once again and find page.ss and use that as its fallback. A vast majority of Silverstripe projects have only one template in the root templates directory, usually called page.ss, and everything else is left to layout. In some circumstances, you may have a page type that has such a distinct design that it needs its own Chrome. A common example of this is a login page, where the user is presented with a very streamlined and isolated form. Now we'll talk about moving our CSS and JavaScript dependencies into the controller. Right now, all of these dependencies are hard-coded in the template. This works okay, but oftentimes you'll benefit from handing over management of dependencies to the controller. This gives you the ability to require specific files for only certain pages, as well as conditionally including or excluding files based on arbitrary business logic. To include these dependencies, we'll make a call to the requirements class, which looks like this. You can see there's just a static method that we're going to invoke, named JavaScript or CSS, and the first argument is the file name. There's also a common method called themed CSS, which is frequently used by module developers. It allows the user to override a core module style sheet very simply. So because all these dependencies are shared across all pages, we're going to make this update to page controller in page.php. Now what I like to do here is just rip out all the HTML from the template and paste it right into our PHP class. We'll go to the init method, as this is one of the first methods to be executed when a controller is started. Of course, this is invalid PHP, but we're going to clean it up. So let's remove all these link tags and script tags and just isolate the file name. And then we'll replace all that with calls to the requirements class so that the first argument is the path to the file. Now notice when I encounter themeder, I have to change that to this themeder. That's because themeder is a method of the controller. $themeder is merely template syntax, so it's not going to work in this context. We have a bunch of JavaScript at the bottom of the template, so I'll just rip all that out and paste it into the controller, and I'll use the handy multiple cursor function of my text editor and replace all those script tags, just leaving requirements calls. We'll reload the page and we see that all of these dependencies are coming through as expected. Now the only script we haven't included is the HTML5 shim that is conditionally included for IE8. While it's possible to add conditional comments via the requirements layer, it's a bit of a hack, and since this is an edge case, we'll just leave it as is in the template. Now, if you've ever worked on a website that is powered by server-side technology, you're probably familiar with includes. This is a way of offloading common content into a single file so that it only needs to be updated in one place. To call an include in Silverstripe, we use the include syntax. All you have to provide is the base template name. You don't need to provide a path to the file because it's expected to be in the templates/includes directory. Furthermore, you don't need the .ss extension. So let's look for areas we can spin off into includes. The first thing I see is this top bar section. So we'll cut all that into the clipboard and paste it into a new file in the includes folder called topbar.ss. Then we'll replace all that content with include top bar. We can also do this for nav section, so I'll replace that with include main nav, and then I'll create a file called mainnav.ss and paste all the content in. Lastly, this footer section is going to be shared across all templates, so let's just put that into its own footer.ss include. Now we added templates, so again we have to flush the cache, so let's add that question mark flush to the URL, reload, and we see that everything is working correctly. Lastly, just as a matter of tidiness, let's get rid of all these HTML comments in our page.ss template, because the template is now so sparse that these comments are just getting in the way, they're just noise. So we'll delete all those, and now we have a nice looking template. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below.